All right, Kev, we are back for another week, and what a week it was.
Nick,
Wow.
there is no place I would rather be than right here talking to you with our fans watching, talking about what I'm calling right now the best episode of the season here on Sunday. Nick, I have a couple questions for you.
Ooh, the best episode of the
Yes.
season.
This
We
was
like
like an
it.
N1 mixtape. There'd be dudes like holding each other back right now and going, "Ooh, Nick, do you like tears? Do you like romance? Do you like backstabbing? Do you like drama? Do you like fights? Do you like the fall of a big player?" I mean, this episode had everything in it.
It literally did have everything. It ended with Cody, or sorry, Paulie crying. I
Yeah.
mean, like profusely. You know what I mean? Like, wow, this
I mean,
episode.
and
intense.
the fall, and this is the thing too, the fall of a big player in this game potentially as well. Someone that wasn't a target. I mean, this episode, I love the double eviction. I almost love the episode after the double eviction more because that's when you get all the juice.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one is like a report describing the car wreck. The other one is like a detailed slow motion video of the car wreck. I mean,
The video always comes out, Nick, right? It always comes out.
it always comes out. Kev, I wrote notes. In fact, this was such a good episode. I wrote 2 pages.
2 pages
of notes. I mean,
man, that is very impressive. I'm not going to grade you on your handwriting. I'm sure it's very legible and very pretty. Did you do calligraphy? Is it bubble lettering, Nick? I mean, give us a peek behind the curtain here.
look, it's pretty horrendous. I mean, this episode, it was so action packed. I mean, it was better than Corey sort of spacing out and thinking about his dog, where that took up like 5 minutes of the episode.
Man, this episode, as I said, we'd been talking for a while where there wasn't much going on. There was a little bit of a lull. Man, this episode had it all. I'm very excited to hear your thoughts on it as we kind of go through this episode because it had it all.
All right, I'm just gonna start off top. I'm gonna go down through my notes. We're gonna rock and roll. Here we go. So right off the bat, in the opening for this episode, like the announcer guy, he even said, okay, because I got a lot of crap for this actually on Twitter. People were like, "What do you mean, Big Meech's disaster speech? You lasted 2 weeks," and I'm like, "Look, I can't even defend that. All right, like I can't say that I'm the best player. Like I will honestly admit that I am not, but I can at least tell you that her speech was terrible for so many reasons. The announcer even said Michelle burned bridges. That equals bad speech, and I'll dive a little bit more into it. But the reason it was so bad is she showed her cards. She kind of like went for it before they announced who got evicted. Why would you do that? What? Wait until you find out. Are you the one who's actually getting evicted? If you are, then spill the beans. Then call her a snake. Not before.
Well, and it was even weird too because it didn't even really sound like Nicole was trying to strike a deal. It sounded like Meech was just trying to just scorched earth policy on that. And she's proven to be a very disappointing game player. She spends the majority of the time in her house crying. I really have yet to see her make any big moves in the house. So she's just proven to be a little bit of an afterthought, Nick. I'm not surprised.
We're on the same page here, man. Another thing that the announcer said was, I love this quote, "The traveling nurse goes to her residency." They're so clever, man. I love it. I love that line. I
love
awesome.
it too that, the announcer probably never thought when he was first watching the show, if he watches the show, he's like, they're actually not going to make me say Big Meech at some point. I'm pretty confident I'll stick with Michelle. Sure enough now, even in the intro, Big Meech did this, Big Meech did that. It's Big Meech week on the Big Meech. It's just like, that's all they refer to her now in the show.
Dude, the announcer has made it when he starts the show with "your boy." That's when we know.
Yes.
If that happens, we're good.
Yes.
Okay, the next note I wrote down here. Natalie tells Zakia all this information, right? Now, I've been reading a lot of comments on Twitter. I've been like, kind of like clicking on something and kind of going to the rabbit hole and like seeing what people are saying, whatever. Apparently right now, a lot of people super unhappy with Paulie. Now, I don't watch the live feeds. Okay, I don't watch the live feeds. I'm just reacting to what's on the show. I can't imagine why Natalie did this. Like, I just don't understand. Just from a pure gameplay standpoint, I understand that she was trying to like scrub her morality clean before, Zakiya left. But like, just from a gameplay perspective, why would you go and have any type of information out there? Why would you ruffle any feathers at all with the time period before somebody goes home? It's just unnecessary, right? It just didn't need to happen.
Natalie is not a very good game player. She is not looking at this from a game playing perspective, I think. She thinks she's just hanging out in a house she thinks she's on the real world right now, where you just hang out with a bunch of friends, and because she's obviously not approaching it from a gameplay perspective. I will say though, Nick, I left watching this episode with a lot more respect for Natalie than I did before this episode. I thought when she was up in the HOH room with Paulie, I thought she handled herself very well. She showed a backbone. I was actually very impressed by her in this episode. And ironically, even though it wasn't a good gameplay initially, it might have ended up being a good gameplay because that kind of drew a line in the sand in the house. And Natalie starting this, as we saw last season with Day, a big blow up in the house makes you a target. So Natalie starting this ball rolling, not a very good gameplay. She's going to be the one that ultimately started the process of getting Paulie out of the house. So it ends up being a pretty good gameplay for the Natalie, James, Paul, Victor side of the house.
I agree and disagree with you. I agree with you in the fact that it was Natalie has now, whether she knew it or not, she has definitely created these waves. She has definitely made this moment. Whether or not she pre-planned it or it just happened, that transpired. Her actually doing it, I totally disagree with, and I think that was just such a dumb move. Just like, didn't need to happen, and it just could have never happened, and she would have been in a better spot than she was the day before. I also wrote this down. James gets really protective, and then Paulie responds with, "Don't let it get to you." So in this sort of like this, like this whole scenario is starting to transpire. James is now really showing his emotional card, right? So James is like saying, in Texas, we do it for the ladies, and this is how we do it. I understand that looks really good, but from a pure gameplay, it's just like it doesn't make any sense.
It's tough. I did leave with a much better impression of James and Natalie. I'm not sure if I do think it, originally with Natalie, not sure it was a great game move, but I do think that James showing some loyalty, he certainly is. It's not surprising why he is America's player, because he really showed a lot of class through that. Paulie did end up looking pretty bad through the whole thing, and it's not surprising why the whole house wants to target him. I was a little disappointed, Nick, in Z. I mean, I was thinking that this was her opportunity in this episode to really stand up to Paulie, show her backbone, really try to question him, find out what's going on. But then she was kind of sheepishly. I also thought that she shouldn't have thrown Natalie under the bus with that. Z should have kept that information and knew that she shouldn't trust Paulie anymore. But then when Z actually went back and Z told Paulie, that's when things started to explode. Natalie was trying to, girl code, trying to help out her sister, trying to help out Z. And then when Z went and told Paulie, I thought that was a mistake on Z's end. She should have just known she couldn't trust Paulie, try to get some votes, try to stay in the house. That ultimately led to this big blow up. I also, Nick, didn't know that Natalie, because kind of like you, I don't watch the live feeds. Maybe our viewers can tell us if they've been cuddling really or kissing. I haven't seen anything on the CBS show that lets us know that Natalie and James are actually a couple. Natalie said that she loves James in this episode and that she cares about James more than anybody other than her family. I was surprised about that. Where has this been? I thought it was kind of like this friendship, this I love you, man. But apparently it's like a real thing.
I literally wrote that exact same thing down right here. I wrote, Natalie, care about James more than anyone else.
I mean, where did this come from, Nick?
Believe that. Blew my mind. I mean, like, there was my mind on the ground, right? And I was just like, I don't know what's happening right now. Because, again, what you're saying, dude, as we're just viewing the show, right? 3 episodes of the week. I'm not watching live feeds. Dude, I never saw this thing transpire where it became like a real rock solid thing. Also, because the show, they're trying to get the point across, they don't cut in all the flirting stuff, right? So like, I don't know how much, either party is flirting. I don't know how much Natalie is flirting versus how much Paulie is. Like, I don't really know. And so when you see this episode where it comes this like cataclysmic like explosion, and they're both accusing each other of like flirting with each other's like, essentially like the person they're kind of dating, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know where it's coming from. All I can say is that when you get that emotional in the house, it is never a good look. Never a good look. Not a good look for Natalie, not a good look for Paulie, because what happens is you just get defensive. And when you start to get defensive, it shows that you don't have the capacity to think logically through every scenario. And everyone is looking for just a reason to send you home. And unfortunately, that is what is now happening. These people are saying, they term you, you're crazy, you're acting erratically, we can't have that, now you're the target. So that's why I can't believe it happened.
It's not just that, Nick, but, like all of us have the friends that are the gossips. And then you kind of think, well, if they're going to tell me that other person's business, they're going to tell the other person my business. So I think that there's an element of that in the house where if you see Paulie get really defensive and blow up at Natalie, everybody's thinking that could be me. I could be Natalie potentially at some point where he blows up, yells at me. So I think that's also why that these emotional blowups, as you said, they put a target on your back, and then everybody puts themselves in that player's shoes and say, that could be me at some point. I don't want somebody like that coming at me like this. Somebody like Day, somebody like Paulie. And I think it's going to be said. I think it could lead to Paulie's demise here with the way that went down.
So if you look at the way that the strategy of the game has been set up, Paulie has really never been in danger, and he's always been kind of calling the shots. So at no other point in the game, really, has he had to be on the defense. This is the first time he's had to be on the defense, and he's being very aggressive about being on the defense. And I think that's really turning off a lot of players, and I think that's why they ended up targeting him. It's also the perfect point in the game for them to actually target Paulie. So it's kind of like it's a really bad crap storm for Paulie, because he's in a position where he is reactive because he's never had to not be reactive. He's always been in control. And it's also a point in the game where they're looking at trying to get out the really good players if the other side of the house is also full of good players. And so I feel like he got caught in a situation where he started reacting, and now it's like on a cycle of reaction. And I think if he can't pause it, it's gonna get him.
It was the absolute worst time for this to happen to Paulie. The absolute worst time. This is the part in the game where everybody is a target and where people start turning at each other because the numbers are getting so small. So this blow up happened at the worst possible time for him, because now he would have been safe, I think, a little while longer. And if he was able to get over this hump, then he would be, and maybe it's him, Paul, and Victor. It's him, Corey. He would have had a chance to solidify an alliance to take him to Final 3, Final 4. When there's 7 or 8 people in the house, everybody is looking at the house and saying, how are things going to come down? Who's going to be sitting here in the finals? What side am I on? Because this is the point where you have to draw a line in the sand. So it just happened to him at the worst possible time, Nick, and I think it's going to be the demise of his game.
It actually reminds me of, for all the nerds out there that are just like me, it reminds me of the creation story of Darth Vader.
Wow, I want to see where you're going with this.
So in the story, the creation story of Darth Vader, first of all, he's like a little kid, you know what I mean? Like, he becomes a Jedi, and like, he's too old to be a Jedi, but he really wants to be a Jedi, and so like he goes through and becomes a really powerful Jedi, right? And then like through the course of all these different events, he essentially gets like put in a situation that he is just reactive, and then he gets like just demonized, you know what I mean? Now he is so reactive that his reaction is now making him a villain. And so I feel like that's the Paulie story. The Paulie story is like he's so reactive that now people are demonizing him because it's to their advantage to demonize him. And now we have this situation where now Paulie has to be on the defense, and he's in a really bad spot. So yeah. I mean, if he uses the force and he force chokes somebody,
yeah,
then we really know.
I also do feel a little bit bad for him. I've liked Paulie throughout the entire episode. And again, we should say this again, don't watch the live feeds. We like to react to the CBS show. But, I've liked Paulie throughout the show. He's got a pretty good edit. He seems like he's a pretty good guy. If he goes home this week, I feel like this is going to be his lasting legacy on the show. He is, as you said, he's going to be the villain. with this like character arc, this really great hero, the fall of a hero, you know? And so I feel like this is going to be his legacy leaving the show, which is not really fair to him. This seems like, to me, I don't know how long all this happened. All of this could have been in the span of an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours real time that then played out over the course of one episode. It's just a tough break for him. Just as a viewer, he was somebody that I really liked through the show. And yeah, it really is the fall of a hero. He's turning to the dark side almost. And,
yes.
you know, I'm concerned that this is going to be his legacy leaving this show, you know, and I'm not sure that's fair, even though I didn't agree with how he handled things. I'm not sure that as viewers, that's fair, that I think we're going to think of him that way.
Dude, we aren't like, that is exactly how I feel, because like in the house, like I really wanted Paulie to go far, and like I felt he was presented as a hero. Again, I don't watch the live feeds, but just from the show itself, I mean, it felt like he was the guy that was going to carry us to the end, and we were all going to feel good about Paulie, like kind of like getting really far in the game. And because of all the circumstances and the way that everything kind of transpired, I really kind of feel bad for the guy. I really do.
So here's the interesting thing, Nick, and I will give myself a little bit of love here. I said on our episode, I said that I think what is happening in the future is Vic is going to be caught in the middle. And because he is a competition beast, he's going to get caught in the middle with then Paul trying to target Paulie. And that's exactly what ended up playing out. I'm going to be curious to see, because I would bet money right now that Paulie wins the veto. What I'm going to be interested in seeing is what veto competition Big Brother puts in front of him. Is it an endurance comp? Do they put a comp in there that would lead us to believe that they want him to stay in the house? Because if it's an endurance comp or something athletic, Paulie's going to crush it. He's going to kill that. He's the favorite right now to win that the veto. So I'm going to be curious what veto competition it's going to be, Nick.
See, now again, this kind of gets back to the game show theory versus it being a reality TV show. Big Brother's a reality TV show. It's not a game show. So different rules apply legally, and like though it's structured in the whole thing. So I think you're right, man. I think that, you know, Paulie being such a popular player, his brother being Cody, I think that there's going to be some sort of like setup to where it's going to be advantageous. Now, it doesn't always happen that way, right? Like Vanessa's sister, Tiffany, is now gone. You know what I mean? I mean, we predicted that she would stay for that same reason. She's now gone. So it'll be really interesting to see what the advantages will end up being based off of this theory that CBS is like, you know, wanting to promote the players that are around. And I honestly, I hope he turns it around. He's one of those guys that, like, I still have faith. I really like Paulie. I want him to turn it around. If it's Corey that falls or whatever, like, I still would rather Paulie like go forth.
Yeah, I also think that we're far enough in the game right now where I'm not sure CBS is that concerned about who stays and who goes. I really think those first couple weeks is when they're trying to get viewers, so they don't want to see a Paulie leave early or a Tiffany leave early. But when you get to, like, you know, 8 people left, 7 people left, 6 people left, I'm not sure they're as worried about it. You know, I mean, he is a competition beast, so I think the money's on him to win this veto anyway. I hope he wins it because I think it's going to be entertaining. I'm going to actually say right now, Nick, I'm going to say he does win it and he stays in the house, which then I think could mean that Corey goes home this week. But I just find it hard to believe. I mean, every time Paulie has gone up to a comp and really tried to win it, he's been killing all of these veto. He knows he's going to be gone. And as a viewer as well, I really hope he stays. That's going to set up some really compelling television now that the line has been drawn in the sand.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that gets to my next point. I wrote down here, we now have this line in the sand, right? So we have Victor and Paul in the middle, right? And they could then kind of like, you know, get on either side that they so choose, of which have now sort of chosen to be on the Natalie Meech side. And then we have Nicole, Paulie, and Corey. And so it's like we have like sort of like 3 little factions here, but it's really Victor, Paul, Natalie, Michelle, and then Nicole, Paulie, Corey. And so it'll be really interesting to see what happens when whoever goes home, whether it's Paulie or Corey or maybe somebody else, then what happens, right? Because now you have like another target for 1 week if those lines kind of stay the same, of which I think they will. I mean, I think it'd be really tough, like in a week, to forget all that happened, you know, especially if like your bromance goes home, like you're not going to forget that. You get really lonely and you get sad and like, you know, they're going to want to come back for vengeance.
Yeah, Big Meech is not a player in this. So really, you know, we're talking about Corey, Nicole, Paulie, and then we're talking about Natalie, James, Victor and Paul. And I like that side of the house a whole lot. I think that side is really good. Now, the only thing you have to be concerned about, if Paulie stays in the house, who knows what could happen, because he could easily win HOH, even up the numbers a little bit. But I'm liking that side of the house a lot. I don't think Nicole has proven that she's a very strong player. Corey hasn't really been able to win anything here this summer. If he goes home, then you've just got Paulie on that side. It's a much stronger side, other side of the house. I'm really liking how things are setting up for somebody like Paul. I think Paul right now is my odds-on favorite to win the game right now, Nick. I'm going to throw that out right now. He's in a great spot. Victor's gonna get picked off before Paul, I think, just because of how being such a competition beast. Nobody wants to go up against him. And he's also with James and Natalie, that showmance right there, which is also going to be a target at some point. So really, he's in the strongest position because he's behind Victor. He's probably behind James on that hit list because people want to knock out the best competitor and knock out the showmance, and that's the strongest side of the house right now.
And dude, I call this from the beginning. In my Big Brother pool that I get to pick, that I do every year, I actually have Paul winning. And like, it's crazy because it was one of those like long shots where I was like, he's going to have to get past week 2 in order to do it. And he has. Like, we talked about this very early on in the show, and that was that if you can get over that hump, if you're the guy that everyone targets and you get over that hump, now you are no longer the target for like the extent of the game. And you just kind of hide behind people. And he's killing it. He's smart too. The guy is smart.
He's got a great social game, and you're absolutely right. And we did talk about that. If you are a target very early on, everybody in the house, Nick, is concerned about what they can't see. It's almost like Jaws, where if you see the shark, it's not that scary. But if the shark's in the water, the shark could be anywhere. So Paul is like seeing the shark early on in week 1 or 2. All the rest of the house guests aren't worried about the shark in front of them. They're worried about the water anywhere. Who's talking in that room? Who's talking upstairs? So then you forget about somebody like Paul that's right in front of you. And he's been able to just, continue. And even as the viewer, I mean, I've got to like him more and more watching these episodes than I did early on in the season. I thought he was out of there with the whole, Jose thing and the Messiah, and he was part of that, and he was his boy. And, I've liked him more and more as we've kind of continued to go on as well.
So Paul is
he
like
was boys with the Messiah, right? Wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
I thought so. Okay, I wanted to make sure.
So Paul is like a shark with a beard. That's
That's right. A bearded shark. Bearded shark. Nick, can I also say, can we drop another care package down to Nicole with a note that says, nobody says thebomb.com anymore? I'm not sure if anyone ever did to begin with, but can we toss that in? Can we ball up a piece of paper, toss it into the CBS thing, and say, Nicole, stop saying things like thebomb.com. I'm not even sure that was ever cool. I know it's not cool right now.
So ironically, I went on a date not too long ago, and that came out of the girl's mouth, but it was like in an ironic sense. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, you're right, but do you have the rights to thebomb.org and thebomb.biz
okay,
and thebomb.co? Because if you don't, I mean, you're just obviously not cool.
Turn it around on her. I like that. She probably went home and registered all those domain names, thinking that you only wanted her to say it if she had the rights to those domains.
That's where we were getting at. Absolutely. Another thing that I wrote down here, the Benny comp was awesome, dude. I thought this comp was rad. I just love this. First of all, I love Benny, which is a little squirrel. I just thought this thing was so neat, and it was like, the competition was cool because it was like mental and you had to be quick, but it also led for a little bit of strategy, of which again I think Paul took complete advantage of. And so I'm really liking the way that he's playing the game. It's really sort of, he is becoming the player that I wanted him to be.
Are you doing another Star Wars reference where he's becoming something? He's becoming this Jedi. Are you trying to crowbar that in here again?
I am, yes.
Yeah. I also will say this. I can't see squirrels out in the world or see a Big Brother episode with a squirrel without thinking about Jason talking about the squirrel from last season. I cannot get that out of my head. So every time, just in life, every time I see a squirrel, I think squirrel.
The squirrel. The other thing I wrote down here was Nicole was on to James's move. I don't know if you noticed that, but like James chose, because Nicole doesn't know what side of the house they are on, right? Mm-hmm. And then James chose another member of her alliance to go against him. So now Nicole is like, she sees it. But then, I mean, I made it even more obvious with the noms. But like, I thought that was really interesting that Nicole was kind of on to James like this early on.
Just another cool thing about that comp and another cool thing about the episode, like even stuff like that, even strategy like that was embedded in this episode, you know, with that particular comp where you've got to choose people to compete. Paul's trying to decide if he wants to choose Paulie, and he instead chooses other people in the house. So yeah, that was interesting. But, you know, Nicole's not really a threat to anybody in the house. She's just a vote. So I wouldn't worry too much about her. But yeah, I think she now, as you said, she obviously knows right now that she's in trouble because she is not on the side of the house with power right now.
Dude, yeah. The last bit of my notes right here were actually just like kind of stuff that we'd already talked about the lines being drawn in the sand. I think these next couple of weeks are going to be the most interesting part of Big Brother until the finale, because we now have that duopoly that we were talking about that we so wanted early on in the game, where we talk about where it's like chaos theory and there's too many things flying at you. You don't know what to do. So you basically do nothing. It becomes group theory and you kind of go back and forth. Now that we have this like two sides of the house that are not only against each other for numbers, but also emotionally invested to really get each other out. I mean, it's like, you got out my best friend. You're talking smack on my girl. You know what I mean? Like, it's back and forth now. Now it's personal. And I love watching the personal fights. Like, not them bickering, but like doing the game when it's personal and they're invested into it. So I'm looking forward to the next couple weeks of Big Brother.
Nick, it's all about stakes, right? And the stakes are raised here after this episode. A couple predictions. I want to hear what you think. I already kind of teased it earlier. I'm going to say Paulie wins the veto, pulls himself off the block. Meech gets put on, and Christmas Corey, gets sent home.
So I'm going to make a wild.
I love it when you do this.
Okay, so I'm going to say, this is a possibility here, that Corey wins. Corey takes himself off, right? And then Victor nominates James, and James goes home.
Ooh, you got to tell me where you're pulling the James nom from. Right now, it seems like they're solid.
They're solid until one of the two, Corey or Paulie, can convince them that they are a power couple and that you cannot remove them. And so you'd have to go through James in order to get to Natalie to be kind of like your pawn in a way. And the only pawn really left in the house is Michelle.
I mean, here's the only problem I think with that is now Victor is totally lost. Now he's alienated the other side of the house with Corey, with Paulie. So that side of the house, Nicole, is gone. Now he's got Natalie gone. If James does go home, if he puts James up and the house sends Paulie out, well, now Victor literally has nobody except for Paul, who's going to distance himself after that move. So that's why I'd find it hard to believe that happened. But as we saw this past week, anything can happen from week to week. It was a crazy week. If that happens, Nick, we're going to be doing this show probably a 24-hour straight episode, because kind of like tonight, there will be so much to talk about that we will have to dive into that if that happens.
Oh, dude. We're going to the Big Brother. We're going to live stream from the Big Brother house in Burbank, California. I'm going to wad up a ball. I'm going to throw it into the house. I'm going to say this is, first of all, do not say bomb.com.
Please. Please.
By viewer choice. And actually, I want to ask our viewers out there, is saying bomb.com, is that cool? Let us know in the comment section below.
And psych is not another thing. Please, Nicole, this week, don't say not. All right. No one says that anymore either. All right. Stop trying to bring these things back, Nicole. Let them die. They should be dead. Don't try to resurrect them like they're the Messiah. That's right. A Messiah reference, Nick. I dropped it in again right at the end.
Perfect, dude. I still wanted him to win, so hopefully he comes back with Glenn. All right, Kev, where can we find you?
I'm at KevSoup and KevSoup.com. As always, thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed the episode as much as we did, and we're excited to see what happens here, to see if Paulie can stay in the house.
Absolutely. You guys can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Nick Uhas. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. That button will be right here. Hit that subscribe button, because Kev and I do at least one video a week. And if the episodes are really fantastic, we'll do two. So we want to make sure you don't miss anything. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you really soon.